chosen one. Listen carefully. You didn't wake up at 3 a.m. because of some restless turn in your sleep. Heaven's voice pierced the silence, and your name was spoken in the courts of eternity. In that instant, the veil between heaven and earth was thinner than a breath, and your spirit was pulled into a moment that cannot be explained away as coincidence. You were not summoned because you were the most talented or the most visible. You were summoned because you are marked for an assignment that demands your immediate attention. When God calls your name in the stillness of the night, He is not making casual conversation. He is activating destiny. And when destiny is activated, all of heaven leans in, and all of hell trembles. Picture this: while the world sleeps, your spirit stirs. You open your eyes in the dim light, heart quickened, unsure why, but deep within, something says, "Get up." This is no accident. This is divine interruption. The King has chosen this hour to reach you because something in the spiritual realm has shifted, and your obedience is required. According to the wisdom recorded in Proverbs, chapter 8, verse 17, "I love those who love me, and those who seek me early will find me." That is exactly what is happening at 3 a.m. Your ear is being awakened to instruction. Heaven is depositing words, warnings, and strategies that cannot wait until daylight. If you roll over and silence that call, you risk missing what was meant to prepare you for the very thing you've been praying about. This hour is a battlefield disguised as quiet. In the natural, it looks like nothing is happening. But in the spirit, armies are moving. Angels are being dispatched. Chains are breaking. And the enemy's plots are unraveling. And you, yes, you are being positioned to speak into the battle. When your name is spoken in heaven, it is not for entertainment. It is recognition. It is a declaration in the spirit realm. This one is mine. Your identity is being confirmed in the hearing of angels and demons alike. You are not invisible. You are not forgotten. You are seen, known, and called. For some, 3 a.m. is just a number, but for the chosen, it is an invitation into the watchman's hour, the hour when Jesus himself prayed in Gethsemane before the dawn of his greatest trial. It is the hour when spiritual assignments are handed out, when the alert are trusted with secrets too valuable to give to the careless. Do you feel the weight of that? This is why you cannot go back to sleep. This is why the atmosphere in your room shifts the moment you open your eyes. God is not simply speaking, He is handing you something. And whether you take it or ignore it will determine the strength of your next season. Your obedience in this moment carries generational impact. It's not just about your life, it's about those who will be covered, healed, or delivered because you said yes when it was inconvenient. In the kingdom, small acts of obedience at the right time open large gates of blessing. So when the call comes, don't delay. Don't negotiate with the Spirit. Don't wait for the sun to rise. This is your hour to stand in the gap, to speak heaven's words into the earth, to silence the enemy's accusations before they can take root. And right now, if this word resonates in your spirit, I want you to respond as a prophetic act. Type the number 330. 3 the comments. 3 for the hour. He called you. 3 for the witness of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit over your life. This is not about superstition. It is a declaration that you hear the call. You recognize the hour, and you will not sleep through your assignment. Like this message, so it will reach others whose ears are being opened tonight. Share it so that someone who has been stirred awake at 3 a.m. will know they are not alone. And subscribe so you stay connected to this flow. Because what is coming next will require the ones who are truly awake to move together. Stay alert, because this is just the beginning. In the nights ahead, you may hear your name again. And when you do, you will rise with no hesitation. Your spirit will already know this is the voice of the one who calls you from darkness into light, from waiting into walking, from promise into fulfillment. There is a mystery about 3 a.m. that cannot be explained by mere human reasoning. It is more than just the middle of the night. It is a threshold in the spiritual realm. In Scripture and in the experiences of God's people through generations, this hour has been marked as a time when heaven and earth draw unusually close. It is often called the fourth watch of the night, when the previous day has fully died, and the new day has not yet begun. For the chosen, 3 a.m. is not simply a number on the clock, it is an open gate. It is a spiritual passage where revelation flows freely and where the voice of God is clearer than the noise of the day. This is why prophets, intercessors, and spiritual warriors often find themselves stirred awake at this time. The body feels tired, but the spirit is alert. The words of Jesus in the Gospel of Mark remind us. Chapter 13, verse 35. Therefore keep watch, because you do not know when the master of the house will come, whether in the evening, or at midnight, or when the rooster crows. This hour also carries prophetic weight, because it is when darkness believes it is most secure. In the natural world, this is when most are asleep, unaware, unguarded. But in the unseen realm, the enemy often advances his plans under the cover of night. It is no coincidence that this is also the hour God chooses to awaken his watchman, because the presence of even one praying, obedient heart can interrupt demonic strategies before they take form. If you have been awakened at 3 a.m. more than once, it may be that you have been enrolled into this watch without fully realizing it. The Lord often trains his chosen ones through repeated patterns. First, he stirs you without giving explanation, to see if you will rise. Later, he begins to speak more clearly, revealing that you are being prepared for a greater assignment. This hour is also deeply connected to surrender at 3 a.m. There is nothing to distract you, no messages to answer, no noise in the streets, no rush of daily demands. It is just you and the presence. The silence makes you aware of how small you are, yet how close heaven feels. In that place, God can address things he could not reach in the daylight. When your attention is scattered, the chosen who answer the call at this hour often find that their spiritual senses sharpen over time. Dreams become more vivid. Discernment becomes more precise. Scripture begins to open in new ways, as if the author himself is sitting beside you, explaining what you could not grasp before. This is because the 3 a.m. call is not just about interceding for others, it is about transformation within you. There is also a prophetic alignment hidden in this hour. In the life of Jesus, the early hours before dawn were moments of profound intimacy with the Father. The Gospels record that he often withdrew while it was still dark to pray alone. These were not random prayers, they were moments of divine exchange, where heaven's plan for the day ahead was set in motion. In the same way, God calls his chosen at 3 a.m. to partner with him in establishing what is to come. When you respond, you step into the flow of something ancient and powerful. You join a lineage of those who have kept watch in the night. Moses on the mountain, David in the wilderness, Daniel in Babylon, Jesus in Gethsemane. Each of them faced seasons when the only voice they could hear was the voice of God in the stillness. And it was in those hours that strength, courage, and wisdom were given for the trials ahead. This is also why spiritual resistance can feel stronger in this season of your life. The enemy is not alarmed by a believer who sleeps through the night and prays only in the comfort of daylight, but a believer who rises in the midnight hour, when the atmosphere is heavy, becomes a danger to the works of darkness. Every prayer at this time is like a torch cutting through the night, forcing what hides in shadows to be exposed. 3 a.m. is not a time for hurried or mechanical prayers. It is a time for listening, for waiting until you hear the tone of His voice and the rhythm of His heart. Sometimes the Lord will speak many words. Sometimes He will simply fill the room with His presence. In both cases, something eternal is being planted in you. Over time, you may notice that this calling shapes you into someone different, more sensitive to the needs of others, quicker to obey, and bolder in speaking truth. If you can walk with God in the darkness of night, you can stand with Him in the heat of battle. The stillness of 3 a.m. becomes your training ground, and the victories you win there will follow you into the light of day. There is a holy weight to hearing your own name spoken by the mouth of God. It is not like when a friend calls you, nor like the sound of a human voice breaking into your thoughts. When the Creator of heaven and earth says your name, everything inside you stops. Your spirit knows instantly, this is the one who formed me, the one who knew me before I was in my mother's womb. In that moment, it is as if all of heaven's focus is fixed on you. You are no longer just one person among billions. You are the one the King has summoned into His presence. The call is personal, but it is never small. It is an invitation into something far greater than yourself. The ancient words recorded in Isaiah, chapter 43, verse 1, declare, "Fear not, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by name, you are mine." No, when God calls you by name, He is not simply addressing you, He is claiming you. He is reaffirming your identity and ownership in His kingdom. This is a moment that hell cannot counterfeit. The enemy may whisper lies, but he cannot reproduce the voice that made the stars and carved the mountains. Only the voice of God carries that authority. Many miss this encounter because they expect it to come with thunder or lightning, but often it comes as a quiet stirring in the night. The volume is not what matters, it is the weight. Your heart knows when the voice you are hearing carries eternal authority. And there is something else. When your name is spoken in heaven, it is also heard in the unseen realm of darkness. Demons recognize the sound, not because they value you, but because they fear the one who speaks over you. Your name, wrapped in His voice, becomes a weapon. It is a reminder that you are marked, shielded, and sent. Some are called for intercession, others for obedience in a specific task, and others simply to linger in His presence until He pours peace or strength into them. No matter the reason, it is never without purpose. The one who knows the number of hairs on your head does not waste His breath. There is also a pattern you may notice when God calls you by name at 3 a.m. it is often because a shift is about to occur. Something is moving in the spirit realm, and you are being positioned to either receive it or guard it. Heaven is never casual with its timing. This is why your response matters. You can roll over, dismiss it, and return to sleep, or you can rise, answer, and step into the moment prepared for you. What you choose in that instant determines what happens next. Many destinies have been delayed because the call was ignored. If you have ever wondered why your name was spoken instead of someone else's, it is because your heart is known by God. He sees what others overlook. He knows the battles you've fought in silence, the wounds you've carried, and the faith that has kept you standing. The call by name is His way of saying, I trust you with this moment. And right now, if this word has pierced through to your spirit, I want you to write "marked tonight" in the comments. Why? Because this is not just another moment, it is a marking. Heaven has drawn a circle around you, declaring that this night is different. It is a prophetic act that says, from this night forward, I know who I am. I know whose I am. And I will never walk as though I am unnoticed again. When you write it, you are agreeing with heaven's declaration over your life, sealing this encounter so that the enemy cannot steal it from your memory. Because the truth is, once you've heard your name from His lips, nothing else sounds the same. No compliment from people, no recognition from the world, no affirmation from friends can match the moment when the voice of the Almighty calls you His own. From that night forward, you will walk differently, not in pride, but in a deep awareness that you are seen, known, and called. And every time you hear your name in the future, even in an ordinary setting, something in you will remember, the King has spoken over me, and I am His, and nothing in heaven or on earth will ever erase that truth from your soul. The moment your eyes open at 3 a.m. and your name still echoes in your spirit, something unseen is already in motion. It is not just a personal awakening, it is a tremor that runs through the invisible realm. When God speaks, creation responds. And when He speaks your name, that response is not limited to your own heart. It reverberates through the spiritual battlefield. There is an order in the unseen. Heaven operates with precision, and so does the kingdom of darkness. But unlike heaven, darkness is not creative, it only reacts. When your name is spoken from the throne room, light marks you, and the enemy sees that mark. To the forces of darkness, it is a sign that heaven's authority has been freshly declared over your life. In that moment, resistance is often stirred, not because the enemy has power to override God's call, but because he fears what your obedience will unleash. The very act of you rising from your bed to meet God's voice sends ripples into the territory He claims. That is why 3 a.m. can feel heavy, why the air feels thick, why your thoughts are suddenly flooded with distractions or doubts. It is a last-minute attempt to keep you from stepping into the flow of what God is doing. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Jeremiah. Chapter 1, verse 10. See, today I appoint you over nations and kingdoms to uproot and tear down, to destroy and overthrow, to build and to plant. This is what happens in the shaking of the spirit realm. Structures that do not belong to God begin to fall, and seeds of His will are planted. Your prayer, your worship, even your silent listening becomes a weapon in that moment. You may feel small, but your obedience carries the weight of the one who called you. When God calls your name, He is not only drawing you closer, He is positioning you as part of a larger move. Sometimes, the shaking is about your own life. Lies you've believed are being broken. Fears you've carried are being dismantled. Other times, it is about someone else entirely. Your name is called because your voice, your intercession, or your authority is needed on their behalf. You may never even know the full impact until eternity reveals it. This is why the shaking is both personal and cosmic. Personal, because God never forgets the individual. Cosmic, because His movements are never isolated. They connect with the larger story of redemption unfolding across the earth. The shaking you feel in your spirit may coincide with unseen warfare over a nation, a city, or a family line. And this shaking is not chaotic, it is deliberate. Heaven does not tremble without purpose. The enemy's camp may be disturbed, but heaven is never unsettled. In fact, the shaking is often the sign that heaven's plan is advancing on schedule. It is the clash between what is and what will be. For you, the chosen one, this moment is not meant to frighten you, but to awaken your courage. Every shaking is proof that God is moving. If the enemy is unsettled, it means ground is being taken. If your spirit feels the tremor, it means you are standing close to the epicenter of God's activity. You may wonder why it must be so intense, why the stillness of the night turns into a battleground. It is because the 3 a.m. hour is one of strategic vulnerability in the physical realm and strategic opportunity in the spiritual realm. Heaven chooses this time to act because distractions are few. But the enemy also knows it is the hour when assignments are released. That is why the conflict is sharp. Your role in this moment is simple, though not easy. Stand your ground. Do not shrink back because the air feels heavy. Do not question the call because you feel unworthy. The shaking is not a sign you are in the wrong place. It is a sign you are exactly where you should be. When the shaking subsides, there is often a strange calm. It is the peace that comes after a battle has been won. Even if you did not see every detail, you may return to bed with the sense that something has shifted and it has. The spirit realm never remains the same after God speaks your name and you respond. And the next time your name is spoken at 3 a.m., you will recognize the tremor for what it is. Not an accident, not a dream, but the movement of heaven and the displacement of darkness. When God speaks your name in the night and you rise in obedience, it is never without purpose. In the stillness, there are assignments being handed down, scrolls in the spirit, containing the very instructions heaven has written for your next season. These are not vague feelings or abstract thoughts. They are divine blueprints that, if followed, will unlock the steps you have been waiting for. The Book of Revelation, chapter 10, verse 8, records a vision. Then the voice that I had heard from heaven spoke to me once more. Go, take the scroll that lies open in the hand of the angel who is standing on the sea and on the land. And this is what it feels like when you receive heaven's scroll. The assignment is not meant to be admired from a distance. It is meant to be taken, eaten, and lived. The words you receive at 3 a.m. are not for a journal alone. They are fuel for action, for building, for obeying. Sometimes the scroll will be about you, restoration for wounds you've hidden, strategies for battles you are fighting, or promises that are about to be fulfilled. Other times, The scroll will concern others, prayers to be spoken, people to reach out to, or prophetic words to be released. In both cases, the responsibility is the same. Treat the assignment as holy. Heaven does not waste words, and it does not deliver empty scrolls. Each one is tied to a specific moment in history. That is why the timing matters. If you delay in opening what you are given, you may miss the window it was designed for. The enemy knows this, which is why distraction often comes immediately after you receive something in the Spirit. Doubt creeps in. Did I really hear that? Weariness sets in. I'll write it down later. But later rarely comes. The scroll you were given in the night may be left unopened by morning if you are not intentional. This is why you must learn to guard the assignments God gives you. Write them down as soon as you receive them. Pray over them, even if you don't yet understand the full meaning. Sometimes the scroll is sealed for a season, and your job is simply to hold it until the moment heaven says, "Now." Receiving a scroll from heaven is not about being special, it is about being available. God could have chosen anyone, but He chose you in that hour because you were positioned to hear and obey. That positioning is not random, it is the result of small acts of faithfulness over time. There are moments when a scroll will carry weight you can physically feel, as if your chest is heavy with the responsibility. There are other moments when it feels light, almost like a whisper. Both are valuable. Both are necessary. Sometimes God sends you with a sword, sometimes with a seed, and you must be willing to carry either. The truth is, the scrolls you receive at 3 a.m. are not only for your life, they are part of a larger move of God in the earth. Each obedient act you take as a result of your assignment adds another stone to the wall, another brick to the building of His kingdom. You may not see the whole picture now, but when you stand in eternity, you will. If you have ever sensed that your obedience in the secret place could change the course of someone else's life, you are right. This is how revival begins, not just in churches, but in bedrooms, kitchens, and quiet corners where someone says yes to what heaven has spoken. If tonight you realize that God has also placed a scroll from heaven into your hands, don't keep it to yourself. Let others be awakened the way you were awakened. Sometimes that's as simple as pressing like and sharing this message, so it reaches them in their own midnight hour. And if you want to keep walking in this journey together, make sure you subscribe so you never miss the moments when heaven speaks again. If your heart feels a stirring to plant a seed into this work to help these messages reach more lives across the world, your giving becomes part of the story of redemption that God is writing right now. The scroll in your hands is not just ink on a page, it is a living word, written by the author of your destiny. Hold it close, guard it fiercely, act on it when the time comes. And remember, every scroll you receive at 3 a.m. is proof that heaven still trusts you with things too important to give to the distracted. From this point forward, may your nights be more than sleep, they will be encounters. May your mornings be more than routine, they will be the unfolding of instructions given in the quiet hours. And may you walk with the confidence of one who carries a message straight from the throne room of God. There is an ancient rhythm to the early hours of the morning, a rhythm older than the ticking of clocks or the rising of the sun. In biblical times, this period between midnight and dawn was called the watch. It was not simply a time to be awake, it was a sacred appointment when heaven's messengers moved, when battles were fought in prayer, and when revelations were delivered to those chosen to hear. You are stepping into what I call the ancient watchman's hour. It is the hour when prophets were stirred to speak, when warriors were summoned to guard, and when intercessors were positioned to stand in the gap for nations. You may not yet see yourself as one of these, but the very fact that God wakes you in this window means He has placed you among them. The writings of David in the Psalms, chapter 119, verse 148, testify, "My eyes stay open through the watches of the night, that I may meditate on your promises." This is what it means to be part of this sacred watch. Your eyes are open not only in the natural, but in the spirit, so that your focus is set on the promises of God. In this hour, your prayers become more than requests, they become declarations, aligning earth with heaven's will. For some, this hour is a training ground. God is teaching you discipline, teaching you to silence the noise in your own thoughts so you can hear Him clearly. For others, it is a battlefield where you are called to speak against the plans of darkness before they can manifest. And for some, it is a place of deep intimacy, where the Spirit pours wisdom into you that you will need in days to come. The beauty of the ancient watchman's hour is that it has always been a partnership between God and man. He does not need you to accomplish His purposes, but He chooses to include you. Your willingness to rise from your bed at this time is itself a prophetic act, an unspoken yes to the one who has called you. You may think, but what difference can my prayer make at 3 or 4 in the morning? The truth is, you have no idea how many storms you've calmed, how many attacks you've prevented, how many blessings you've released simply because you were faithful in this hour. Heaven sees the obedience, hell feels the impact. In this hour, the smallest act of faith carries multiplied weight. Whispering a single verse can shift the atmosphere over your home. Declaring God's promises over a person's life can strengthen them to endure. Worshipping quietly can invite the presence of God to flood a place that felt spiritually dry. This is also the hour when many of God's generals throughout history received their most defining instructions. It was in the stillness of night that Samuel heard God's voice for the first time. It was during a night watch that Gideon received strategy for battle. Even Paul and Silas, in the midnight hour, saw prison doors fly open as they prayed and sang hymns. If you have been feeling the pull to be awake in these hours more often, don't resist it. Instead, lean into it. Prepare for it. Keep a Bible within reach, a journal nearby, and a heart ready to respond. The ancient watchman's hour is not random, it is a gift. And here is where I want you to take a prophetic step right now. If you are reading this, and your spirit knows you are being called into this sacred watch, I want you to comment the number 4,444 below. 4 is the number of stability, foundation, and order. And this hour is about God establishing foundations in you that will not be shaken. Writing it is not superstition, it is agreement. It's saying, Lord, I take my place in the watch. I stand where you've positioned me, and I will not move. When you do this, you are not just leaving a comment on a screen, you are making a statement in the natural and in the spirit realm. You are telling heaven, I am here. And you are telling hell, I am awake, and I will not be caught off guard. The ancient watchman's hour is not glamorous. It does not come with applause or headlines, but in eternity, it will be counted among the most powerful and decisive moments of your life, because in these hours, unseen walls fall, Unseen chains break, and unseen seeds are planted, seeds that will grow into testimonies you could never have imagined. So, when the call comes again in the deep hours of the night, remember, you are not being disturbed. You are being invited. You are stepping into a tradition older than kingdoms, older than cathedrals, older than the sun itself, the watch that belongs to those who are awake when the world sleeps. The world moves at its own pace during the day, full of noise, urgency, and competing voices. But in the early morning hours, when most are sleeping, something shifts in the unseen. The air feels different, not because the temperature changes, but because spiritual activity intensifies. At 3 a.m., when the Lord stirs you, it is often not only for prayer, it is for war. This is the hour when your obedience becomes a key in heaven's hand to unlock doors and break chains. While the world sleeps unaware, strongholds can be dismantled in silence. Darkness thrives in secrecy. But when a chosen one rises to pray, worship, or simply remain in God's presence, light pierces the cover of night. The Apostle reminds us in his letter to the Corinthians, chapter 10, verse 4, "The weapons we fight with are not the weapons of the world. On the contrary, they have divine power to demolish strongholds." Oh, in the natural, it might look like you are doing nothing, sitting in a dimly lit room, whispering words no one else hears. But in the spirit realm, your prayers are fire. Every word aligned with God's will burns through chains the enemy thought could never be broken. The power is not in your volume or your emotion. It is in the authority of the one whose name you carry. Breaking chains is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is persistent, quiet resistance against temptation. Sometimes it is speaking blessing where there has been cursing, declaring truth where there has been deception. Every act of obedience in this hour is a blow against the darkness. For some, these prayers target their own lives, breaking the chains of fear, shame, or addiction. For others, they are interceding for family members, friends, or even strangers. God often calls people into this hour, not only for personal freedom, but to stand in the gap for someone else's breakthrough. The unseen war is real, and it is strategic. The enemy's plans often take shape in silence, in the unguarded hours. That is why God's watchmen are awake, interrupting these schemes before they can manifest. This is not about paranoia or fear. It is about standing in the confidence that light always overcomes darkness. When you pray in this hour, you are not begging God to act as though he were reluctant. You are agreeing with what he already desires to do. Prayer becomes alignment. And when you align with the heart of God, the results are inevitable. There is also an element of persistence required here. Some chains break immediately under the weight of prayer, while others weaken over time. The Lord may wake you multiple nights to address the same stronghold, not because he is unwilling to act, but because he is teaching you endurance. In that process, your faith is refined, your discernment sharpens, and your authority grows. In the natural world, breaking something often requires striking the same point again and again until it yields. In the spirit, it is the same. The chain may be invisible, but every prayer is another strike, another crack forming in its structure, until the moment comes when it can hold no longer. This is also why isolation during this hour can be deceptive. You may feel alone, but you are part of a network of believers across the world who are awake, holding the line in prayer. Some are in quiet rooms, others in hospitals, others in prisons, yet all are joined in the same unseen work. The beauty of this kind of warfare is that it transforms the one who fights. You may enter the night feeling weak or uncertain, but you will leave with a deeper sense of God's presence, a renewed boldness, and often a tangible peace. Victory in the Spirit always leaves an imprint in the soul. When the chains break, whether you see it immediately or not, there is a shift. The atmosphere changes. The weight lifts. Sometimes you will hear testimonies days or weeks later confirming what was accomplished. Other times, you may never know until eternity reveals the lives touched by your obedience. In the end, breaking chains while the world sleeps is not about recognition, it is about faithfulness. God has entrusted you with moments that few will witness, but many will benefit from. And though your hands may never physically touch the chains you break, heaven keeps record of every act of obedience in these hours. And one day, you will see the eternal impact of each prayer whispered in the stillness of night. There comes a moment in the journey of every chosen one when the weight of their calling becomes visible, even if only in the spirit. For you, it may not have been marked by a coronation or a public ceremony, but when God awakens you in the deep of night and lays his mantle across your shoulders, it is every bit as real. A mantle is not merely a covering, it is a symbol of authority, responsibility, and spiritual inheritance. In the days of the prophets, a mantle often marked the transfer of anointing from one servant of God to another. When Elijah placed his mantle over Elisha's shoulders, it was not a casual gesture. It was a declaration that Elisha was now chosen to continue and expand the work God had begun. As the Apostle Peter declares, chapter 61, verse 1, "The Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is on me, because the Lord has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim freedom for the captives." When God places his mantle on you, it is not so you can feel special, it is so you can serve. The weight of the mantle may feel heavy at times, not because it is a burden, but because it carries the responsibility of heaven's agenda. You are no longer simply living for yourself. You are a representative of the King in whatever sphere he sends you. This spiritual mantle often arrives in moments of deep intimacy with God. It can come through a prophetic word, a sudden awareness of your purpose, or a night encounter where his presence fills the room so tangibly that you know something has shifted. And once the mantle rests on you, you cannot return to the same way of living. The mantle is also a target. Just as anointing attracts favor, it also draws resistance. The enemy recognizes when someone has been clothed with divine authority, and he will attempt to discredit, distract, or discourage you before you fully walk in it. This is why it is crucial to understand what you carry. If you think the mantle is just a feeling, you may set it aside when opposition comes. But if you know it is a spiritual reality, you will guard it as a priceless treasure. It is important to note that mantles are not earned, they are given. No amount of striving or human effort can produce them. They are placed upon those God chooses, often in moments when they least expect it. Moses was tending sheep when God called him. Gideon was threshing wheat in hiding. Mary was living an ordinary life in Nazareth. The mantle comes when heaven decides the time is right. Carrying the mantle means you are stepping into a legacy larger than yourself. It connects you to the prayers of saints who came before you and to the purposes of God that stretch beyond your lifetime. This is why mantles are sometimes passed through generations, both physically and spiritually. The call on your life may be the continuation of something that began long before you were born. But mantles also require stewardship. If they are neglected, they can be forfeited. If they are carried with humility and obedience, they can multiply in impact. Elisha did not just receive Elijah's mantle, he carried it faithfully and ultimately performed twice as many miracles as his predecessor. The increase came not because Elisha sought power, but because he honored the mantle he had been given. For you, stewardship may look like daily prayer, disciplined study of the Word, or quietly serving in the place God has assigned you. It may mean saying no to opportunities that would compromise your integrity or turning away from distractions that dull your sensitivity to His voice. The mantle thrives in environments of holiness, humility, and hunger for God's presence. There will be days when the mantle feels too heavy, when you wonder why God chose you at all. But remember, He did not place it on you because you were perfect. He placed it on you because you were willing, and in your weakness, His strength will be made perfect. From this moment forward, see yourself as one who has been clothed with purpose. The mantle is not an accessory you take on and off, depending on the occasion. It is your identity in the Spirit. Whether anyone else recognizes it or not, heaven knows you wear it. And as you walk faithfully under its weight, the world around you will begin to see its effects. Even if they cannot explain them, there are moments in the journey of the chosen when the call of God is not gentle, it is a confrontation. The darkness will not yield territory willingly. And when you step into your assignment, resistance rises to meet you. Sometimes it comes through external circumstances, delays, opposition, or sudden challenges. Other times, it comes through internal battles, fear, doubt, or the temptation to retreat. The instruction from James is clear. Chapter 4, verse 7. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. This is why the confrontation you face is rarely about people. The real battle is unseen. The enemy recognizes your potential before you fully walk in it, and his goal is to stop you before you gain momentum. He knows that once you see yourself as God sees you, equipped, authorized, and unstoppable, his influence over you collapses. In the night hours, when God calls your name, He is not only inviting you into intimacy, He is summoning you into warfare. This is why the atmosphere can feel tense, why distractions suddenly appear, why even your own thoughts can feel like a battlefield. Heaven's call stirs the spirit realm, and every unclean force that has tried to keep you bound takes notice. Some confrontations will be quick moments where you sense the push of the enemy. Respond in prayer and feel the resistance break. Others will stretch over days or weeks, requiring persistence and trust. In both, the victory is certain if you remain aligned with the one who called you. During these battles, the temptation is to measure your progress by what you see in the natural. But breakthroughs in the Spirit often come before you see them manifest in your circumstances. Do not mistake silence for inaction. God does some of His greatest work in the unseen. When you stand in these moments, you are not only fighting for yourself, you are holding the line for others who will benefit from your victory, family, friends, even strangers who will one day cross your path. Your endurance in the confrontation creates space for them to step into freedom, without fighting the same battles you had to face. The enemy's intimidation is a sign you are advancing. If you were no threat, there would be no resistance. Opposition is often confirmation that you are exactly where you are meant to be. This is why you cannot shrink back. When the confrontation comes, you must meet it with the authority of heaven and the confidence that the one who called you will also sustain you. And here is where I want you to respond. If your spirit knows you are in such a confrontation right now, where the enemy is pushing hard because he knows you are close to a breakthrough, I want you to write, "I will stand," in the comments. Write it not as a casual phrase, but as a prophetic declaration. Let it be your statement to heaven that you accept your position on the front lines, and let it be your warning to hell that you will not move. When you write it, you are sealing your posture in the Spirit. You are saying, "I refuse to bow to fear. I resist every lie. I remain where God has placed me until the victory is mine." This is how spiritual battles are won, not only by the power of God, but by the determination of His people to stand until the enemy flees. Remember, the one who called you by name at 3 a.m. is the same, one who equips you to endure. Your stance is not in your own strength, but in the strength of the Almighty, and that strength will not fail. And one day, when you look back on this season, you will see that every moment of resistance became a stone in the foundation of your testimony. You will speak with authority because you did not run. You will lead others out of their own battles because you stood your ground in yours. And heaven will call your endurance by its true name, victory. And even now, as you face the heat of the battle, remember, your faith under fire is producing a crown that cannot be taken from you. Every step forward is proof that you are already winning. And when the dawn breaks after this night, you will rise not just as a survivor, but as a warrior refined by fire, unshaken and unmovable in your calling. When God calls you in the night and places something in your spirit, it is not vague emotion, it is strategy. In those moments, you are receiving sealed orders from the throne, instructions that will shape not only your personal journey, but the lives of those connected to you. Heaven's communication is never accidental, and when it comes in the stillness, it carries a precision you cannot afford to overlook. These orders are sealed, not because God is hiding them from you, but because they are hidden for you, protected until you are in the right posture to receive and act on them. Sometimes the instructions will make perfect sense immediately. Other times, they will unfold in stages, requiring you to walk in faith until the full picture comes into focus. We are reminded in Habakkuk, chapter 2, verse 2, "Write the vision, make it plain, on tablets, so he may run who reads it." This is the pattern of sealed orders. They are meant to be written, guarded, and eventually acted upon with clarity. What you hear in the night may feel fragile at first, but when you record it, you give it a form that can withstand distraction, doubt, or delay. Sometimes the sealed orders will be deeply personal directions about your own steps, warnings to change course, or confirmations of decisions you've been weighing. Other times, they are assignments for others, a word of encouragement, a prayer for protection, or a prophetic message for someone in a critical moment. The challenge is this: sealed orders are rarely comfortable. They may require you to step into unknown territory, confront situations you would rather avoid, or carry a message that others may resist. This is why God often delivers them in the quiet, before the noise of the day can drown out your courage. Your obedience is the link between heaven's intention and earth's reality. When you act on these instructions, you become an answer to prayers you've never heard, and a key to doors you didn't know existed. Carrying sealed orders also means protecting them. Not every word is for public sharing. Some instructions lose power if spoken too soon or in the wrong company. Discernment is as important as obedience. If this word stirs your spirit, click the like button so it can reach more people. Share it with someone sensing God's voice in unusual ways. If you want to walk this journey together, subscribe so your heart stays ready and your spirit alert. And if God puts it on your heart to sow into this work, understand this: it is not a casual gift. It is a prophetic act. You are stepping into the flow of what heaven is doing, partnering with a message that is waking up chosen ones in their own midnight hour. Your seed becomes a torch in someone else's darkness, a key in the hand of another warrior, a lifeline for a soul ready to give up. Sealed orders are not for the careless or the casual. They are for those who understand the cost of obedience and the reward of faithfulness. If God trusted you enough to give them to you, it's because He knows you are capable of carrying them to completion. So guard what you've been given. Pray over it. Write it down. Wait for the moment to move, and when that moment comes, act without hesitation. Heaven's timing is perfect, and when you align with it, the outcome will carry His signature. From this day forward, may your nights be more than rest. They will be divine briefings. And may your days be more than routine. They will be the unfolding of assignments given in the quiet, accomplished in the light, and sealed with the authority of the one who sent you. So guard what you've been given. Pray over it. Write it down. Wait for the moment to move, and when that moment comes, act without hesitation. Heaven's timing is perfect, and when you align with it, the outcome will carry His signature. From this day forward, may your nights be more than rest. They will be divine briefings. And may your days be more than routine. They will be the unfolding of assignments given in the quiet, accomplished in the light, and sealed with the authority of the one who sent you. And when you walk in them, the heavens will bear witness, the earth will respond, and every step you take will echo with the certainty that you are carrying a mission written before time began. There are seasons in your walk with God when the silence becomes the loudest voice you hear. Not silence because heaven has turned away, but silence because heaven is watching you take the next step without the familiar sound of instructions you've grown used to. These moments can be unsettling. You may search for the signs that once felt so clear and wonder if you've drifted from the path, but often, this is not abandonment, it is advancement. When a teacher stops giving answers during a lesson, it is not neglect. It is because the test has begun. In the same way, there are times when God withdraws the constant stream of confirmations so you can exercise the faith He has already built in you. Faith matures not only in the hearing, but also in the walking one step after another, guided not by sight, but by trust. As recorded in the book of Psalms, chapter 37, verse 7, "Be still before the Lord, and wait patiently for Him." The prophet Elijah knew this rhythm well. After the dramatic fire of Mount Carmel, he found himself in a quiet cave, listening for the voice of the Lord. And when the wind, earthquake, and fire passed, what came was not a shout, but a whisper. It is in the stillness that you learn to tune your heart to subtler frequencies. to discern the faint impressions of his leading when the booming declarations fade. Silence also strips away dependency on the approval of others. When no one else is affirming your steps, you begin to realize that obedience is not a group activity, it is a personal covenant. The applause or criticism of people becomes secondary to the inner knowing that you are aligned with your calling. In these quiet stretches, it is tempting to create your own noise, filling your life with endless activity to drown out the discomfort. But activity is not the same as progress. You can be busy and still miss the path. Sometimes the wisest thing you can do in the silence is to remain still long enough for the next clear instruction to surface. We see this in the life of Moses. After the initial call at the burning bush, there were stretches of the journey where he had no new orders, only the last command to keep leading the people. Between the Red Sea and Mount Sinai, there were days and nights of nothing but sand, sky, and the responsibility of keeping the camp moving. Yet, in those unremarkable days, the people learned to follow a God they could not see, guided only by a cloud by day and fire by night. Silence is also a revealer. It shows you what you truly believe about God's character. When the miracles are fresh and the voice is loud, it is easy to proclaim trust. But when you walk through the ordinary days without visible signs, your trust is tested. Do you believe He is still leading when the path feels empty? Do you believe His promises are intact when no new word has come? If you listen closely, you will discover that silence has its own language. It teaches patience, deepens resilience, and sharpens discernment. It makes the moments when God speaks again all the more precious. Because you have learned the value of waiting, this is not a passive waiting. It is an active posture of readiness, keeping your spirit alert and your heart open. Like a soldier at his post in the pre-dawn hours, you do not abandon your station just because the commander has not yet sent the next signal. You remain vigilant, knowing that the next directive could come at any moment. And sometimes, the silence itself is the directive. It can be God's way of saying, "Hold your position. Do not advance or retreat until I move." It is in these seasons that obedience is proven not in grand gestures, but in quiet steadfastness. Over time, you will look back on these stretches of silence and realize they were not empty at all. They were formative. They taught you to live not from emotional surges, but from anchored conviction. They trained you to recognize God's presence not only in dramatic encounters, but in the steady companionship that undergirds every step. If you are in such a season now, resist the urge to measure your progress by constant activity or visible signs. Trust that even in the quiet, you are under watchful eyes. Heaven does not waste your waiting. What feels like stillness is often the soil where roots go deep, preparing you to bear fruit in the seasons ahead. There are moments when God interrupts your path not to stop you, but to realign you. A divine interruption often comes disguised as an inconvenience, a delay, a closed door, or an unexpected change in direction. At first, it may feel like a setback, but if you look closely, you'll see it's an act of mercy, positioning you for something you could not have reached on your own. As recorded in the book of Proverbs, chapter 16, verse 9, "In their hearts humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps." Ein quote. You may have had everything arranged in your mind, the timing, the sequence, the outcome. Then suddenly, the plan is overturned. It can feel like the ground has shifted beneath you. But heaven is not reacting to your circumstances. Heaven is directing them. Some of the most significant breakthroughs in Scripture were preceded by divine interruptions. Joseph's journey to the palace started with a betrayal. Moses' mission began in the wilderness after fleeing Egypt. Paul's ministry was birthed out of being stopped on the road to Damascus. None of these men would have chosen the interruptions they faced. But each one later saw that the disruption was actually a redirection. The challenge in these moments is trust. Can you believe that God's detour is better than your destination? Can you yield your timeline and accept that His is perfect? This requires a surrender of control, not a passive resignation, but an active agreement with His wisdom. When you resist the urge to force your way forward and instead lean into His leading, you will begin to see patterns. A door that closes here protects you from harm there. A delay today sets you up for a divine appointment tomorrow. The hand of God is not random, it is precise. Even when it feels slow, sometimes the redirection will make sense quickly, and you'll thank God for sparing you from what you couldn't see. Other times, you may walk for months or years before understanding why He moved you in a different direction. But in both cases, His track record remains flawless. If you sense that you are in such a moment right now, where something you thought was certain has suddenly shifted, I want you to mark this moment in faith. Write the number 444 in the comments. It's not just a number, it's your declaration that you trust God's alignment over your own agenda. It's your way of saying, I choose the path you set before me, even when I can't see where it leads. When you type it, let it be more than digital ink on a screen. Let it be the sound of surrender in the spiritual realm. Every time you see that number, remind yourself that you are walking a God-ordered path, and no step taken in obedience will ever be wasted. You are not lost. You are not off course. You are exactly where you are meant to be for what God wants to do next. And when the time comes, the reason for the interruption will not only make sense, it will make you grateful. And here's the deeper truth. Sometimes God's greatest blessings are hidden inside what feels like the greatest disappointments. The relationship that ended may have saved you years of heartbreak. The job you didn't get may have spared you from a dead end that would have drained your purpose. The city you never moved to may have kept you in the very place where your true calling could grow. This is why heaven's no is often mercy in disguise. It doesn't mean rejection, it means redirection. Every time you surrender your own blueprints and allow Him to rewrite your steps, you're stepping deeper into the destiny He prepared for you before the foundation of the world. And here's the promise you can hold on to. The God who interrupts is the God who completes. He never takes you from one plan without having a better one prepared. Every interruption is a bridge, and every bridge leads somewhere greater than where you started. So, lift your eyes from the closed door and start looking for the bridge. You'll see it soon enough, and when you cross it, you'll realize the interruption was not the end of your story, but the doorway to its most powerful chapter yet. And when you stand on the other side, you'll look back with gratitude, understanding that every twist, every pause, and every redirection was heaven's way of making sure you arrived at the right place, at the right time, carrying the right heart. There are seasons in a chosen one's journey when the weight of the calling presses heavier than before. It is not because God has left you, but because He is stretching your capacity. You may feel the strain in your emotions, your relationships, even in your physical body. This is the training ground for those who will carry greater authority in the days ahead. As recorded in the second letter to the Corinthians, chapter 4, verse 17, "For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all." It is not that the trials themselves feel light, they can be exhausting, disorienting, and relentless. But compared to the eternal weight of what they are producing in you, they are brief and purposeful. God does not waste pain. Every challenge you endure is shaping you into a vessel strong enough to carry what He has planned. In the refining process, God removes what cannot go with you into the next season. Some of these things are obvious habits, distractions, or attitudes that you know must change. Others are more hidden insecurities, fears, or attachments that quietly limit your obedience. Refinement is rarely comfortable, but it is always necessary. Think of a blacksmith at work. The metal is heated until it becomes pliable, hammered into shape, then cooled to set the form. Without the heat, the metal remains rigid and unshaped. Without the hammer, it remains without purpose. Without the cooling, it cannot hold its new form. In the same way, God uses seasons of heat, pressure, and stillness to form you into what He envisioned from the beginning. One of the marks of this season is that the usual rhythms of life may no longer satisfy you. Conversations that once interested you now feel shallow. Activities that once filled your time now feel empty. This is because your spirit is outgrowing its old environment. The space you are stepping into requires a deeper level of focus and a higher level of discipline. It is in this space that your prayer life shifts. You no longer pray only for God to change your circumstances. You pray for Him to change you within the circumstances. You begin to ask for wisdom more than rescue, endurance more than escape, and understanding more than relief. These are the prayers that align you with heaven's perspective, and they are the ones God answers with transformative power. There will also be moments of loneliness. Not everyone can walk with you through this part of the process. Some will misunderstand your focus, and others will simply not feel called to the same depth. This is not a sign that you are abandoned. It is a sign that you are being set apart. Just as Jesus withdrew from the crowds to be alone with the Father, you will find yourself needing those quiet spaces more than ever. During these stretches, you will also be confronted with your own limits. You may discover areas where you lack patience, areas where your trust wavers, or areas where old fears still linger. These revelations are not meant to shame you. They are invitations to deeper healing. God exposes what is weak so that He can strengthen it, not so that you will feel disqualified. In time, you will begin to notice changes in how you respond to challenges. The things that once would have shaken you no longer move you in the same way. Your reactions become steadier, your vision clearer, your endurance stronger. These are signs that the refining process is working, even if you still feel the fire. And when the refining has accomplished its purpose, you will carry something unshakable, an authority that comes not from titles or recognition, but from having been tested and proven faithful. People will sense it when you speak, not because your words are louder, but because they carry the weight of one who has walked through fire and emerged whole. If you are in such a season now, take heart. You are not being crushed, you are being prepared. The pressure you feel is not the sign of God's displeasure, it is the sign of His investment in you. He sees the battles ahead and is equipping you now to win them. And when the day comes that you step fully into what He has prepared, you will realize every moment of this refining was worth it. And in that moment, you will stand not only as a survivor of the process, but as a living testament to the power of God's shaping hand, ready to lead others through their own fires without fear. There is a point in the journey of the chosen where vision becomes clearer than ever before. It is not that God suddenly changes His plan, but that your eyes have adjusted to see it. What was once a vague sense of calling sharpens into a defined mission. You begin to recognize patterns in your past, moments you once thought were random, now fitting together into a divine design. As recorded in the book of Isaiah, chapter 46, verse 10, I make known the end from the beginning. From ancient times, what is still to come. I say, my purpose will stand, and I will do all that I please. Clarity often comes after long seasons of uncertainty, when you have walked through trials, endured refining, and surrendered your own timelines. You are finally in a posture to receive a greater measure of understanding. This clarity is not merely informational, it is transformational. It changes how you see yourself, your circumstances, and your future. One of the first shifts you notice is that you begin to measure success differently. Instead of chasing the approval of people or the visible markers of achievement, you evaluate your life by alignment with God's purpose. You no longer ask, is this impressive? But, is this obedient? That single change in perspective alters every decision you make. Clarity also brings courage. When you are uncertain, it is easy to hesitate, to delay, or to second-guess every move. But when you are confident that you are walking in your God-given path, you move forward with boldness. Even when obstacles arise, they no longer paralyze you, because you know they are only temporary roadblocks, not permanent barriers. This does not mean the path becomes easy. In fact, sometimes greater clarity brings greater resistance. The enemy prefers you to be unsure and wandering, because uncertainty keeps you from moving with conviction. But once your vision locks onto the assignment, your momentum becomes dangerous to the forces opposing you. Clarity also sharpens your discernment about people. You begin to see more clearly who is meant to walk with you and who is not. Some relationships, while not harmful, may no longer be helpful in the new season. This can be difficult to accept, but clarity helps you release without bitterness. Knowing that not everyone is assigned to every chapter of your life, as your vision becomes sharper, you also notice opportunities you might have missed before. Conversations, connections, and open doors stand out because you are no longer distracted by detours. You learn to recognize divine appointments, moments that carry unusual weight and potential. These moments often require immediate action, and clarity gives you the confidence to act without hesitation. However, clarity is not just about moving faster, it is about moving wiser. With vision comes the responsibility to steward it well. Some insights are for immediate execution, while others must be protected until the right time. Just as Joseph received dreams years before they came to pass, you may carry pieces of your destiny long before you see them fulfilled. This is where patience and faith work together. Patience keeps you from forcing something prematurely. Faith keeps you from abandoning it when it takes longer than expected. Together, they guard the vision and ensure that when the time comes, you are ready to step into it fully prepared. As you walk in this clarity, you will find that it attracts both favor and opposition. Some will be drawn to the light of your purpose, others will be threatened by it. Neither reaction should dictate your pace. Your focus must remain on the one who gave you the vision in the first place. And perhaps the greatest gift of clarity is peace, even when circumstances are not yet perfect, even when all the resources are not yet in place. You can rest in the assurance that you are exactly where you are meant to be. That peace becomes an anchor, holding you steady in the face of uncertainty, and a compass, guiding you forward when the path twists unexpectedly. Clarity is not the end of the journey, it is a new beginning. With it comes the call to walk with greater intentionality, greater resilience, and greater trust. You are no longer wandering in the dark, you are advancing with purpose. Your steps lit by the vision placed in your heart before time began, and as you walk in it, every choice becomes intentional. Every step carries weight, and every breath feels like agreement with heaven's plan, until the vision you now see becomes the reality you one day touch. There are moments in the life of a chosen one when God's call is not only for you to listen, but to speak. What He has deposited in you through the long nights, the refining fire, and the seasons of silence is not meant to remain hidden. At some point, the message you carry must be released, not carelessly, but with purpose and precision, as recorded in the book of Matthew, chapter 10, verse 27. What I tell you in the dark, speak in the daylight. What is whispered in your ear, proclaim from the roofs. This is the essence of being entrusted with revelation. You are called to steward it well. Then release it when the time comes. God's voice in the dark is not meant to die in your memory. It is meant to become a light for others still walking through their own darkness. But stepping into this role requires boldness. You may fear rejection, misunderstanding, or even opposition. Yet, the truth remains. Your voice has been shaped for this moment. Every challenge you have overcome has added depth to your words. Every prayer you have prayed in secret has filled your voice with authority. When you speak from a place of authenticity and obedience, you don't just share information, you release transformation. The right word, at the right time, can break chains, heal hearts, and shift destinies. This is why the enemy works so hard to keep you silent. He knows that your testimony carries the power to unlock freedom for others. The release of your message is not limited to a stage or a microphone. It might happen in a quiet conversation with a friend, a post on social media, a prayer over someone who didn't even ask for it. Wherever God places you becomes your platform, and every interaction becomes an opportunity to carry His truth forward. And here's where I ask you to take action. If you've been sensing that God has given you something to say, something that burns in your heart, don't let fear keep it locked away. Hit the like button so this message can reach others who need the courage to speak. Share it with someone who has been wrestling with their voice and wondering if it matters. Then, make it personal. Drop a comment below with the phrase, "I will speak." Let it be your public declaration that you will not let the whispers of heaven die in your heart. When you type those words, it's not just a statement to other people, it's a signal to the spiritual realm that you accept your role as a messenger. If you want to keep growing in boldness and staying connected to encouragement like this, make sure you subscribe. That way, you'll be ready for the next word that equips you to step into your calling without hesitation. And if this ministry has been a blessing to you, and you feel led, Consider sowing into it, not as a transaction, but as a prophetic act. When you give, you are fueling the spread of messages that awaken the chosen, strengthen the weary, and call forth those hiding in the shadows. Your seed becomes more than support. It becomes a voice that travels further than your own, touching lives you may never meet, but God knows by name. This is not about building a brand. It's about building the kingdom. Every like, share, comment, subscription, and gift helps carry the light into places where the darkness has felt unchallenged for too long. You have a part in this mission, not just as a listener, but as a co-laborer. So, take what God has placed in you and speak it. Don't wait for perfect conditions or unanimous approval. Speak when He prompts you. Speak when it's inconvenient. Speak when your voice shakes. And watch how heaven backs every word that aligns with His truth. You were not given this voice by accident. It is a weapon, a tool, and a gift. And when you use it in obedience, the ripple effect will reach further than you ever imagined. The message that began in the dark will shine in the daylight, and its echo will carry far beyond your lifetime. And one day, when you stand before the one who first whispered it to you, you will see the faces of those whose lives were changed because you chose to speak. Their stories will testify on your behalf, and heaven itself will honor the moment you decided that silence was no longer an option. There comes a point in your journey where the victories you've seen are no longer just moments of personal relief. They become milestones of God's faithfulness. You start to realize that every battle you've faced, every tear you've shed, and every prayer you've whispered has been woven into a much bigger story than your own. These moments are no longer isolated events. They are markers that point back to a God who never left you. As recorded in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 31, verse 8, "The Lord Himself goes before you and will be with you. He will never leave you, nor forsake you. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged." With each step forward, you begin to see patterns in how God works. He often moves just in time, not always early, but never late. The delays you once questioned now appear as strategic pauses, giving you time to grow, heal, or prepare. The closed doors that once frustrated you now make sense, because you can see what they protected you from. This is the vantage point of hindsight, where the path behind you begins to explain the path ahead. You can look back and trace His fingerprints on the moments that felt chaotic at the time. That conversation you thought was random led to a crucial connection. That disappointment you thought would break you became the very thing that reshaped your priorities. In this stage, gratitude becomes more than a polite response. It becomes your default posture. You start to thank Him not only for the breakthroughs, but for the seasons that seemed barren. You see how the wilderness seasons stripped away what was unnecessary and deepened your dependence on Him. These reflections also deepen your trust for the future. When you've seen God come through before, it becomes easier to believe He will do it again. You carry a quiet confidence that doesn't need constant reassurance, because your history with Him is your proof. And yet, even with this maturity, there will still be moments of uncertainty. Life will continue to bring challenges, and not every answer will come quickly. But the difference now is that you are anchored. You have lived through enough storms to know that the same God who calmed the winds before can do it again. This confidence is not arrogance, it is assurance. It's the kind of assurance that allows you to face tomorrow without panic. to navigate decisions without crippling fear, and to hold your plans loosely, knowing they are safest in His hands. It's also the stage where your story becomes a source of strength for others. People around you begin to notice the steadiness in your spirit. They come to you not because you have all the answers, but because you carry peace in the middle of uncertainty without even trying. You become a living testimony of God's faithfulness. Sometimes, sharing your story will be intentional. You'll sit across from someone and recount the details of what God has done. Other times, your life itself will speak louder than words. The way you carry yourself in hardship will become a sermon without a pulpit, reminding others that trust is possible, even in the dark. This stage is also a reminder to remain humble. The victories are not solely the result of your effort, they are the result of God's hand guiding, protecting, and providing for you. Pride has no place here. Gratitude and humility must walk hand in hand. And as you look ahead, you understand that the same God who has been faithful in the past will be faithful in the future. Your steps may still be unknown to you, but they are never unknown to Him. The same voice that led you through valleys will guide you toward mountaintops. So you walk forward, not with blind optimism, but with tested faith. You don't need to see the whole path. You just need to trust the one who walks it with you. And in that trust, you find rest, knowing that your story is still being written, and the author is as faithful as he has ever been. Each chapter ahead is already infused with His wisdom and marked by His goodness. Even when the twists surprise you, they will never surprise Him. One day, you will read back over the pages of your life and see not only the trials and the triumphs, but the thread of His presence running through them all, a golden line of grace that never once let you go. There is a moment, after years of walking with God, when you realize that the journey itself has been the gift. The promises He spoke over your life were never only about the destination, they were about forming you along the way. Every season, whether joyful or painful, has been part of a divine sequence, each step carrying you closer to becoming the person He always intended you to be. As recorded in the book of Romans, chapter 8, verse 28, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose. When you look back, you see that nothing was wasted. The detours strengthened you. The delays deepened you. The disappointments redirected you. Even the moments that broke your heart became the very soil where greater faith could grow. What once seemed like scattered pieces now fit together into a design so intricate that only God could have authored it. In this awareness, your pace changes. You are no longer rushing toward the next milestone, desperate for proof that you are progressing. You learn to walk with steady steps, savoring the present while trusting the future. Peace begins to outweigh urgency. You start to see that God's timing is not a barrier, it's a blessing. This kind of peace doesn't come easily. It's the result of surrender. At some point, you stopped wrestling for control and started resting in His wisdom. You discovered that your strength is not in forcing outcomes, but in staying aligned with His will. You've seen too much of His faithfulness to doubt that He is still at work. Even in the unseen, from this place of trust, you begin to dream again, but differently. These dreams are no longer fueled by personal ambition alone. They are shaped by the kingdom's priorities. You desire impact more than recognition, legacy more than applause. You start to ask not just, what can I achieve, but what will outlast me? And as those dreams take root, You begin to notice the people God has placed around you. Some are there to teach you, others to walk alongside you, and still others for you to guide. The calling was never meant to be lived in isolation. It was always meant to ripple outward, touching lives beyond your own. Legacy is built not in grand gestures alone, but in the daily faithfulness to do what God has asked of you. Sometimes that means speaking to crowds. Sometimes it means encouraging one weary soul. Both matter equally in His eyes. Every act of obedience, no matter how small it feels, sends waves into eternity. There will still be battles ahead. The journey does not end with understanding, it deepens. New seasons will come with their own challenges, but you face them now with a steadiness forged in years of walking with Him. You know that victory is not always immediate, but it is certain for those who remain in His will. One day, when your race is finished, you will see it all clearly. Every unseen act of faith, every hidden prayer, every tear shed in secret will stand as part of the testimony of your life. And you will hear the words you have been longing for all along. Well done, good and faithful servant. Until that day, you walk on eyes fixed on Him, heart anchored in His promises, steps guided by the same voice that first called your name. You are not merely surviving the journey, you are carrying His light into every place your feet touch. And when your story is finally told, it will not be defined by the trials you faced, but by the one who carried you through them all. And when your story is finally told, it will not be defined by the trials you faced, but by the one who carried you through them all. It will be the record of a life that, though imperfect, was faithful, a heart that, though tested, kept believing, a voice that, though sometimes trembling, never stopped speaking the truth. It was given. On that day, you will understand why certain doors had to close, why some prayers seemed unanswered, and why certain seasons felt longer than you could bear. You will see how each moment, both the ones that made you rejoice and the ones that brought you to your knees, was used to craft something eternal. And perhaps the most beautiful realization will be this: you were never walking alone. At every stage, the hand of God was steadying you, the Spirit was guiding you, and His love was holding you together when nothing else could. That love will not just have carried you to the finish, it will have been the greatest treasure of the journey itself. If you've journeyed with me through every section of this message, then you know you are not here by coincidence. Each word you've heard, each truth that has stirred your spirit, was planted for a reason. God has been speaking, shaping, and preparing you. And now it's your turn to act. If what you've received has spoken to your heart, I want you to take a simple but powerful step. Hit the like button. It may seem small, but it helps this message find others who are standing in the same midnight hour you once faced. Share it with someone who needs to be reminded that their story is still unfolding under the hand of a faithful God. Drop a comment below with the phrase, "I am chosen." Let it be your public declaration that you are ready to walk in the identity and purpose He's given you. Your words will inspire others to do the same, sparking courage in hearts you may never meet. If you haven't already, subscribe so you can keep receiving messages that keep your spirit sharp and your faith steady. This journey is ongoing, and every new word is another step forward in the calling on your life. And if God moves you to give, see it not as just an offering, but as a seed into kingdom work. Every gift helps spread these messages to the corners of the earth, reaching people who need a timely word, a reminder of hope, and a push toward their God-given destiny. We are in this together, not just as listeners and speakers, but as carriers of the light, and the light we carry is never meant to stay hidden. Let's take it further. Together,